We are told from the moment we basically open our first bank account that the ultimate financial sin is standing in line at a cafe and tapping your card for a $5 latte.
Right, the classic avocado toast argument.
Exactly. You're just standing there waiting for your drink, and according to basically every traditional financial guru on the planet, you're literally drinking away your future wealth.
Yep.
But today, we are completely dismantling that narrative. For this deep dive, we've pulled together a really fascinating stack of sources. We've got recent behavioral economics papers, cognitive psychology, clinical trials, and a decade's worth of macroeconomic labor data.
It's a heavy stack.
It really is. And our mission today is to explore a super controversial thesis from this research. We're going to look at why playing defense with your money, clipping coupons, tracking every receipt, obsessing over micro expenses, is mathematically and psychologically guaranteed to keep you from ever becoming wealthy.
I'll just state the core premise of these studies right out of the gate, entirely unapologetically. It is the single biggest financial distraction of the 21st century.
Wow.
Upselling over pennies is the exact reason the middle class stays the middle class. The research we are analyzing calls this the Frugality Trap, and the brutal truth that emerges from all this data is just this. You cannot shrink your way to wealth.
Okay, let's unpack this, because our entire financial culture is built on the premise that a penny saved is a penny earned.
Right.
If we look at standard advice, keeping a strict eye on your expenses is just considered, playing good, responsible defense.
Yeah.
Are these behavioral economists genuinely suggesting that managing your outflow is actively harmful?
They are. They're suggesting that treating frugality as your primary wealth-building strategy is just a fundamental mathematical error.
A mathematical error?
Absolutely. The data in our source stack points to a really simple, undeniable equation. Look, there is a hard mathematical floor to how much you can save. You can only cut your expenses down to zero. That is the absolute limit of the game. Once you hit the floor, you cannot optimize any further. But conversely, there is an infinite ceiling to how much you can earn. There is literally no cap on income generation.
So if we look at this structurally, you have a constrained variable on one side, your expenses, and a completely unconstrained variable on the other side, your income.
Precisely. Now let's look at the time allocation studies in our sources, because this is where it gets real. The researchers tracked how self-made millionaires allocate their time compared to, median earners.
Okay.
The divergence is massive. The middle class exhausts a disproportionate amount of their financial energy trying to push their expenses closer and closer to that hard floor.
Yeah, clipping the coupons.
Right. They spend hours negotiating a $30 reduction on a cable bill, or driving across town for cheaper gas, or agonizing over generic versus brand name groceries. But the top 1% of earners, they spend zero time looking at the floor. Zero. They direct 100% of their financial energy toward pushing through the infinite ceiling. Wealthy individuals play offense.
Looking at those time allocation studies, it feels like it's like being the CEO of a company that is slowly losing market share.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And it's instead of inventing a new product or expanding into a new market, you spend your entire week wandering the office, unscrewing half the light bulbs to save on electricity.
That is a highly accurate structural analogy. You probably feel incredibly busy.
And you definitely feel responsible.
Exactly. You feel responsible, but the company is still mathematically guaranteed to go under. Unscrewing the light bulbs might incrementally slow the rate of failure, but it does absolutely nothing to generate success.
Right.
The wealthy recognize that time and cognitive energy are their most valuable assets. Spending an hour of your life to save $4 is, according to the economic data, a catastrophic misallocation of resources.
So if the math is so clearly skewed toward the ceiling, toward earning, why does everyone hyperfixate on the floor? Smart, capable people unscrew the light bulbs every single day.
They do.
There has to be a psychological mechanism driving this, because it feels like when you're so focused on not drowning, you just can't even think about building a boat.
The behavioral economists in our stack actually have a specific term for that feeling. They call it the scarcity mindset.
The scarcity mindset.
Yes, and this bridges the gap between the flawed math of the frugality trap and the very real psychological damage it causes. Because look, the human brain has a strictly limited amount of cognitive bandwidth every single day.
Right, decision fatigue.
Exactly. You only have the capacity for a certain number of high-quality decisions before before that fatigue sets in. The clinical trials we're looking at show that when you spend 20 minutes calculating how to save $3 on a grocery bill,
Or when you sit there feeling genuine guilt over a Tuesday latte.
yes, you are actively burning your mental capital on pennies.
So the budgeting app isn't just an innocent tool. It's actually kind of a cognitive parasite. Like, it feels helpful, but it's quietly draining the mental battery you need to solve larger, more lucrative problems.
It drains the battery, and honestly worse, it fundamentally alters your brain chemistry.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The cognitive psychology studies detail the actual biological mechanics of this over a 5 to 10 year period.
Oh, wow.
When a person's dominant daily interaction with money is restriction or cutting back or saying no, they are constantly signaling to their nervous system that they are operating in an environment of severe shortage.
Okay.
This triggers an elevated cortisol response. You essentially wire your brain for fear and survival.
Walk me through the mechanics of that survival response, because how does an elevated cortisol level from clipping coupons actually prevent someone from making money?
It causes a phenomenon that cognitive psychologists call tunneling. Yeah. When your brain perceives a scarcity of resources, whether that's money, food, time, whatever, it biologically borrows processing power from your peripheral vision and your long-term planning centers to hyper-focus on the immediate shortage.
So it forces you to look right in front of your face.
Exactly. The clinical trials in our sources showed that operating in a state of financial scarcity literally drops a person's effective IQ by up to 13 points in the moment.
Wait, your effective IQ actually drops. 13 points.
Yes. The amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain, it hijacks the system and overrides the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is the area responsible for long-term strategy, complex problem solving, and risk assessment.
That's wild. You are temporarily lowering your own intelligence by obsessing over a $5 deficit.
You are forcing the most powerful computing machine in the known universe to optimize a grocery list while simultaneously shutting down its ability to take calculated risks. And let me tell you, when you operate in survival mode, risk tolerance is the very first casualty.
I want you, the listener, to really reflect on the mechanics of what was just described. Think about your own financial decisions over the last few years.
It's sobering.
It really is. How many opportunities have you passed up because your prefrontal cortex was shut down by the tunneling effect? How many times did you say no to a dinner invitation, a networking event, or an investment in yourself just because your nervous system was reacting to a perceived short-term expense?
This right here highlights the true opportunity cost of inaction, which traditional advice completely obscures.
Yeah, they never talk about that.
Never. A financial advisor will tell you the cost of the daily coffee is $5 plus compound interest over 30 years. But the behavioral economists argue that the actual cost of the scarcity mindset is exponentially higher.
Because of what you don't do.
Precisely.
Right.
The cost is that you won't start the side business. You won't invest in a high-ticket course to learn a new lucrative skill. You won't fly to a conference to shake hands with someone who could alter your career trajectory.
Or move to a new city for a massive opportunity.
Exactly. All of those offensive moves require capital deployment, risk tolerance, and a growth-oriented prefrontal cortex. Frugality systematically dismantles all three.
But here's where it gets really interesting. There's a fascinating paradox in the clinical data here. People don't practice extreme frugality just to save money, right? They often do it because it feels incredibly good in the moment.
It does. It gives you a hit.
Yeah. Denying yourself that $5 purchase provides a measurable hit of dopamine. You can look at your banking app and say, well, I am managing my budget. I am being the adult in the room.
Yes, the illusion of control. And the researchers pinpoint this as the most insidious mechanism of the entire trap.
The illusion of control.
Right. Controlling a microscopic expense gives you a rush of agency, but in reality, you are completely out of control of your actual earning potential. You are gripping the steering wheel of a parked car, convinced that you are driving.
Gripping the steering wheel of a parked car. That illustrates the disconnect perfectly. It is so much easier to skip the avocado toast than it is to walk into your manager's office and negotiate a 20% raise.
Or to take the terrifying leap of pivoting into a completely new, higher-paying industry.
Exactly. Frugality feels like responsibility, but the data suggests that for many, it's simply a retreat.
It is a retreat. You are taking your current salary, treating it as a fixed, immovable law of physics, and then contorting your entire existence, your desires, and your family's lifestyle to fit inside that tiny, static box.
Shrinking your life.
Yes, you shrink your life to fit your income rather than expanding your income to fit your life.
Okay, so if we are parked in this tiny box, hyper-focused on the floor, who's actually driving the highway? Because if we connect this to the bigger picture, the macroeconomic data in our stack highlights a massive divergence between these micro habits and the reality of the global economy.
Oh, if you zoom out to the macro level, you see exactly who benefits from a population trapped in the scarcity mindset. Giant institutions, corporations, and the economic status quo absolutely thrive on a hyper-frugal middle class.
Why? Just because we aren't demanding more from them?
Partly, but mostly because it acts as the ultimate systemic distraction. The macroeconomic labor data we're reviewing shows a brutal reality. Over the last 2 decades, average median salaries have completely failed to keep pace with the explosive compounding costs of housing, education, and healthcare.
They aren't even close?
Not even close. And at the same time, real inflation is silently eroding the purchasing power of whatever savings the middle class manages to scrape together.
Right.
If your money is losing 5 to 7% of its value annually due to inflation, clipping a 5% coupon at the grocery store does not build wealth. It doesn't even keep you at break even.
So we are essentially taking systemic economic gaps and internalizing them as personal moral failures. Like, if I just hadn't bought that expensive coffee, I could afford a $600,000 starter home.
Which is...
The math on that is entirely disconnected from reality.
It is mathematically absurd, yet it's completely culturally normalized. While people are distracted, exhausting their cognitive bandwidth to save 50 cents on a can of soup, they are completely ignoring the massive macroeconomic forces that are actively destroying their wealth.
They're playing the wrong game.
You are playing a microscopic game while fundamentally losing the macroeconomic one.
All right, so what does this all mean? The psychological and mathematical traps are heavily documented in these studies. The math of the floor is a dead end, the tunneling effect of the scarcity mindset wires you for fear, and the illusion of control distracts you from macroeconomics.
Right.
But we need to talk application. How does someone listening who just realized they are trapped actually transition from defense to offense? We can't just abandon all financial hygiene and start spending recklessly. Right?
No, absolutely not. The studies suggest a transition blueprint based on redirecting cognitive bandwidth. It requires 3 specific structural shifts.
Okay, what's step 1?
Step 1 is automate and ignore.
Put the defense on autopilot.
Exactly. The researchers do not advocate for financial chaos. You still need a baseline savings rate and emergency reserves, but you must automate it entirely.
Take the decision-making out of it.
Set up the automatic transfers to your investment accounts on the day you get paid, and then, and this is crucial, refuse to look at the daily fluctuations. Delete the micro-budgeting apps from your phone.